Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this year's new student welcome, the class of 2024. I'm Tommy Paolucci, your current Director of Admissions. We initially planned to do this in the Convocation Center live with everybody, and then due to COVID-19, we changed plans and we're going to actually do it in the Alumni Lounge with the 6 of us here, each taking some time to speak with you. And then plans changed again to honor social distancing, respecting each other's health. We decided to do this via Zoom, and we've all been communicating with one another, with our students on Zoom, so we're going to try to do our best here with you this evening. I'm joined by Father James, our president, Dr. McMahon, our principal, Brother Josh, our director of campus ministry, and Mrs. Bright, our director of Christian Service. And at the bottom, I think you'll see it right beneath me, is Mr. Pat Goulden. Mr. Goulden is going to be taking over for me as admissions director, really right when this video ends. Each will say a few words to you in the coming moments, and then after that, Mr. Goulden and I will run through a PowerPoint presentation that further connects the dots on some of the information that has already been emailed to you, specifically the new student welcome letter. Before we really get going, I would like to have Brother Josh lead us in prayer.
As we begin everything at DeMatha, we begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for an opportunity to learn about the school that we will be attending in the fall. Lord, we ask you to bless the class of 2024 as they prepare to turn the page into this new chapter of their life. Bless their families as they struggle in this difficult time, but help them to rejoice in the hope that is to come in the new school year that will begin, in the life that will return back to normal. We place all of our trust in you, and we hope that you will bring us through this difficult time. We ask you to bless all of our families again, bless the sacrifices that they make, bless the first responders and all the hospital workers who are working so hard to keep everyone safe. We ask all these things in Christ our Lord. Amen. St. John DeMatha, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you so much, Brother Josh. Father James, I know you wanted to say a few words to our new families and students. The microphone is yours.
Hello, DeMatha class of 2024. We are so thrilled to be able to connect with you tonight. Tonight is such a different experience for all of us. In the past, our program for the new student and family welcome would be held in the Convocation Center. We'd all be there together. We'd watch the new stags coming into the building with their families, a little nervous, but really excited. They would line up to get their supplies, acknowledge their friends from their school or from their sports teams. I even noticed that many times parents would run into other parents they had not seen for a while and realized both their sons are joining the DeMatha tradition. It was such a great evening filled with the DeMatha spirit. Although I think that the same enthusiasm is present, we can't see any of that tonight from you. However, I hope you will notice our happiness and our excitement about you making this wise decision to become a DeMatha stag. Although our campus has been closed for many weeks due to the pandemic, we've been working very hard to complete this year and even harder to get ready to welcome you in the fall. Thank you, parents and grandparents, for trusting in the mission of DeMatha, and thank you, class of 2024, for choosing to become a DeMatha brother. DeMatha today, DeMatha forever.
Wow, thank you so much, Father James. We really appreciate that. Dr. McMahon, you're up next.
Yes, indeed. Hi, class of 2024. I cannot wait to see you all on campus so that we can begin our journey together. You are so fortunate, and we are so fortunate, because you're joining a community of faith. So we will worship together, we'll pray together, we'll learn to be reverent together. It's a community of service, and that helps us grow beyond ourselves. It's a community devoted to academics. This is going to open intellectual worlds to you, and maybe some of you will find the calling that you're going to have in your life when you go to college. It's a community of art that helps us see beauty, symmetry, balance, and to create those things in our life. It's a community with athletics where we learn to compete and we learn to be teammates, to be leaders, to be followers. Can't wait to see everybody in the fall, and it's going to be a great journey for the next 4 years. Thanks so much, class of 2024.
Thank you very much, Dr. McMahon. Now, we've already heard from Brother Josh, but he's going to talk a little bit about campus ministry.
Good evening again, class of 2024. I'm so excited to see all of you in the fall on campus. Being a part of the DeMatha community, we have a lot of great things. We have a great year ahead of us. I cannot wait to meet each and every one of you. Just to let you know some things that are coming up, in a couple of days, you're going to be getting in the mail, I think an email, we're going to be sending an email from the campus ministry office on some information regarding the freshman experience, which is your introduction to the DeMatha tradition. This takes place in August, a couple days before the school year begins. So please look for that in your emails. I think we're just sending that out to parents. So please, parents, look for that in your emails. It'll tell you all the information that you need to know. Until then, we look forward to seeing you, and have a wonderful and safe summer. God bless.
Thank you, Brother Josh. And now Mrs. Bright, who is our Director of Christian Service.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mrs. Bright. I work in the campus ministry office as the Director of Christian Service. It is my job to help support the students as they do service in the community. Serving others, particularly those who are the most vulnerable and marginalized, is a central focus for the Trinitarians. So it's a priority for the DeMatha community as well every year. As Brother Josh said, we will be sending an email to all of our incoming families next week with more information about our retreat program, like the freshman experience, and our service programs, so that you can begin to prepare over the summer. We want you to know that we are praying for you, especially during this difficult time, and we are so excited to meet all of you in August. God bless.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Bright. So what we're going to do here next is actually have Father James, Dr. McMahon, Brother Josh, and Mrs. Bright say goodbye to everybody for now. They are not going to stick around for Mr. Goulden and I as we take you through a PowerPoint presentation. So I guess if we can time this right, can I see everybody wave goodbye for now to the class of 2024 and their parents?
Bye, 2024.
Bye, 2024.
Okay.
And you all are free to leave the meeting at this point, and from here on, they're stuck with just seeing Mr. Goulden and I. Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Goulden, it's just us. The pressure's off. No more Father James, no more Dr.
That's right, that's right.
All right, let me see if I can share this screen here. And let me see if I can start this show. Okay, so in the email that I sent last week, I kind of had you do a visual of coming in. You got to school just on time. You walked up to the convocation center. You asked your son to put his phone away for that last time. You walked through. The red balloons were to your left, the white to your right, whatever it was. You smelled the nice food we were going to have available. You finally made your way to your seat after getting that folder, and obviously you bumped into a family that Father James kind of mentioned that as well. But if you would have looked up at that point, to your left would have been a big white board. And on that whiteboard, we would have had this PowerPoint presentation displayed. So that is what we're going to do now. I'm going to walk you through it and we'll kind of read through and add a few notes to it as to each slide. I think there's 16 total slides. So DeMatha Catholic High School, class of 2024, new student / family welcome, April 20th, 2020. Question number 1. Let me see if I can move myself just a little bit over here. That might work better. When does the school year begin? So the first day of school for freshmen is Wednesday, August 26th. And I made a little typo right here. Look at that. I didn't even do a T and an H there. It's an S and a T. It's right on the bottom here, though. The second day is actually Thursday, August 27th. Now that is a 2-day, and Brother Josh mentioned this a little bit, freshman experience. So listen here for closely, I'm gonna give some details. That first day, that Wednesday, the young men do not come in uniform. They can kind of dress down. We put a nice breakfast spread out. They meet us in the old gym. Again, there's breakfast there. They get placed into their houses. Mr. Goulden will maybe mention a little bit about that when he talks about the DeMatha Way class in just a second. And it's a day full of really just getting to know one another. You all have likely heard me say we have students from over 100 different feeder schools, 100 different middle schools join us every single year. Some of you are the only student at your school. Some of you are, there's a dozen or so more from your school. But with that, we know that first day is a day to kind of get to know one another. There's all types of activities built in. There's a group called Kaliva that we hire to come, and they do all types of ropes and team building and just different things. It's an awesome day. The young men at the end of that day will really know one another. They'll go home with a sense of belonging. That second day is a bit more academic based. They do wear their school uniform, the fall uniform, again, which we'll talk about in a little bit. They'll go to a shortened schedule. They will hear some guest speakers. If I'm not mistaken, they get their student ID, at least their pictures taken that day. So that's day 2. Both days we provide lunch for the young men. Don't get used to that. It's just those first couple days and a few other days throughout. But it's a great, again, and we call it the freshman experience, a really nice way to get all of our guys together and knowing one another moving forward. That Friday, there is no class on August 28th for freshmen. Our 10th graders come in early in the morning. Our 11th graders come in just after that, about 2 hours after, and then our seniors about 2 hours after that. There's 3 different school assemblies, class level assemblies, to welcome the upperclassmen back. So our freshmen are not involved in that. They'll be able to enjoy a 3-day weekend and then come back for their first full day of classes on Monday, August 31st. Back to school night, which is a night I recommend all of you. It's a good way to put a name and a face with your teachers. You're not really going to be able to ask how your son is doing at that point because you only have a few minutes to maybe say hello and shake a hand, or who knows, in this day, give an elbow bump or whatever it is now. But Tuesday, September 8th, it's back to school night. So when does the school year begin? You've got some dates there. Again, you can cross-check that with the New Student Welcome newsletter. Fact number 2, Mr. Goulden, I'll take this one, I think. When will I receive my schedule? So schedules will be available. They'll be mailed and accessed via the parent portal. It's the same Veracross portals that you've been using. You just get different permissions. Right now, you're still an admissions portal parent, but that will happen the first week of August. From here, Mr. Goulden is going to just really go through every incoming 9th grader's data that they had in the application file one more time. And we take our time putting our student schedules together. He's going to use HSPT scores, and you'll learn more about this a bit later. Grades. There is going to be placement exams, or there are going to be placement exams that we're going to figure out a way, a math placement exam, a world language placement exam. We'll touch on that a little bit later for you all or for the students to take. But we really do take most of the summer, the month of June and July, to really get that schedule exactly what it needs to be. And there's a lot of communication between Mr. Goulden and everybody during that time. If you do have questions, you should contact Mr. Goulden as our Director of Admissions. That's one of the roles of the Director of Admissions here at DeMatha, is to put the freshman students' schedules together. Maureen Ritz is our 9th grade school counselor. She's also the Director of Guidance and Counseling. Her contact information is there as well. But again, really up through the month of August, Mr. Goulden should be your contact with any questions about classes. Is my son in honors? How does this happen? How does that happen? That type of thing. So there we go. Fact number 2, when will I receive my schedule? The direct answer to that is right here, the first week of August. Now, this isn't a frequently asked question, but it's something that we like to share with our families. Again, talking about helping students transition to high school, specifically DeMatha. And I asked Mr. Goulden to cover this slide because he was the lead teacher of the DeMatha Way class for a number of years before taking over as Dean of Students this year. So Mr. Goulden, can you talk a little bit about the DeMatha Way?
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Paolucci. I really appreciate it. And I just got to say before I start to talk about DeMatha Way, to the class of 2024, to your families, I just cannot wait. I'm so excited to get started. I know things, circumstances, things are up in the air right now as far as the current circumstances that we're going through as a country, but I can tell you I could not be more excited to welcome the class of 2024 in August. So without saying much more than that, I just got to say the DeMatha Way class, when I think about the tradition, the history of DeMatha Catholic High School, there's a lot of pride that comes with that. And DeMatha Way class is a class that will be on everyone's schedule. And, the transition between 8th and 9th grade can be incredibly challenging. It can be downright tough. So we want to really do as much as we can to make sure that that transition is a smooth one. So one of the ways we do this from the very beginning is in the DeMatha Way class. Now, within the DeMatha Way class, there is actually what's called the house system. And you heard Brother Josh talk about the freshman experience. You heard Mr. Paolucci just talk about the freshman experience. We don't call it orientation, but it really is a form of orienting the students to the tradition of the school's history, and kind of the way that we do things here at DeMatha. The house system is the first day when they're brought into the cafeteria. That first day, they will be separated into their houses, and you cannot believe that first day they'll be silent. They probably won't be talking to hardly anyone. But once they get through that first day, and they've met people, that they've had fun, that they've done some team building with their houses, that's when you really start to see that brotherhood form. And then on the second day, you get a lot more of those conversations. So DeMatha Way and the whole house system is a way that we really try to kind of bring that brotherhood and foster those relationships early on. And it really does kind of assist in the transition to DeMatha. So some of the topics that we're going to cover, the Trinitarian history is over an 800-year history. And when you talk about anything regarding the school, the mission, it all goes back to the Trinitarian mission. And it is a mission of really, when it gets down to it, of service. And so that's one thing. We do a lot of service at DeMatha. Even in DeMatha Way class, we will partner with Mrs. Bright to do service. We'll make baggies for the homeless. And all of this really ties into our mission as a school of, like Brother Josh, I think Mr. Paolucci also said, helping the marginalized. And that's just so important. We also go into school history. DeMatha is a school that's rich in history, and this directly ties into the house system. So each of our houses are named after a prominent, really legendary figure in DeMatha history. So for example, one of the houses is named after Morgan Wooten, who was a beloved coach, teacher, ran camps, was really a legend, not just at DeMatha, but in the nation. And so that will be one of the houses, will be the Wooten house, and we'll teach the kids about the different houses, and they'll be able to do presentations on the different houses as well. As you know, we have a strong tradition of faith-filled gentlemen and scholars. That is from day one something that we stress. That's a big part also of our character education, and also allowing the kids and also stressing to them that you are a DeMatha student 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's a big responsibility, and that's a huge responsibility to carry, but it's one that they should have pride in. The second to last one is, in my opinion, probably the most important. We're going to not only bring in the Academic Support Center staff to talk with the kids, but there's going to be an ongoing relationship with the freshman counselor, who is Mrs. Ritz. She is going to come into the DeMatha Way classes from time to time. We are going to partner with the counseling center, as we have in years past, to ensure that if your son is having a problem in a particular area, that he is getting the resources necessary. And the DeMatha Way kind of allows us to get ahead of problems and challenges kind of before before they kind of start to have a domino effect. So that's one of the real, in my opinion, that's one of the most important parts of DeMatha Way. I also have to mention about DeMatha Way, there's 50 students in the class. And I know you're saying, oh my goodness, 50 kids. And I know as an educator, I understand that sounds like a lot, but we do have 3 teachers in the class. And so it's a very interactive class. And so just so you know, there will be between 40 and 50 kids in that class. The last part is, again, something that we will start from day one, the orientation to technology. Instagram, Twitter, you'd be amazed at how versatile kids are these days with Snapchat and all these platforms. However, you would be amazed at how few kids actually know how to send a formal email. And so that's one of the things we really it's one of the challenges is kids are so technological, but at the same time, teaching them how to do the basics that they'll one day need to do for a career, and even in college and at DeMatha with their teachers. So, okay, Mr. Paolucci. So moving on to the next slide. Fact number 3. Okay. When will textbooks be available for purchase? So again, I understand that, a lot of things are up in the air. However, we do still have a book swap scheduled for Saturday, August 11th, and that is put on by the DeMatha Parent Organization, and that is also a uniform sale swap. So access to book lists will be available on the school website. That is done through MBS Direct for new and used book purchases. And in a couple more slides, I'll also talk about a little bit more about uniform.
Good. And I'm just going to jump in and talk a little bit more about the DPO book uniform sale swap. And I may have a slide that touches on this later. But on that Saturday, the back parking lot, the rear lot here at the school fills up. And in quadrants, we have 10th graders. We have 11. I guess it's not quadrants. I guess it is quadrants because it's our seniors who've graduated. But we've got our students and families who were 9th graders this past year, 10th graders this past year, 11th graders, 12th graders. And it's very similar to a swap meet. You walk through, if you have your book list and there's families that are selling books that they had before, it's a great way to get books at a very reasonable price. We do have some organization to that. I believe we cook out. We've got hamburgers and hot dogs. There's also stuff inside the antler room as well. That's typically where the uniform fittings and sales are. But it's just it's a great DeMatha day. Again, there's a lot of spirit in the back parking lot, so definitely circle that on your calendar. One of the other things that I always recommend to parents when I speak with them individually is if you know a current 9th grader that is going to be a 10th grader and that is returning to DeMatha next year, call that family, email that family, Zoom that family, and say, hey, hold on to your books. Don't do anything until I get my schedule, because maybe I can take some of those books off of you, meaning that you could buy some from him. We're not like the public school system or maybe some other schools where we provide textbooks for everybody, but there is this great sort of, as you move up, you sell your books. And by the time you sort of graduate, you've, in a sense, made your money back, because now you're selling books that you don't need any longer. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But Saturday, August 11th is a big day. Circle that. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we can't really get you a book list until the schedules are finalized. And that's going to be typically August 1st, that first week of August. Move to the next slide here, Mr. Goulden.
Yep.
And I guess I'll take this one. I forget if we said I was going to do this one or not. But what's DeMatha's technology policy? It's optional for incoming freshmen to have a laptop or tablet for school. We know some schools, middle schools, have gone to really utilizing, utilizing them, whether it's iPads, MacBooks, whatever it might be. There's more information on the technology policy information sheet that you should have received in the email that contain this link. But if a student is comfortable and likes to use a laptop or tablet to organize himself or take notes in class, for the most part, he's going to be allowed to do that. Each teacher has his or her own set of rules with respect to that, but most are rather open to it. So you don't need to have a tablet or laptop. We do have Chromebook rentals through the library, through our Chromebook carts. We've got iPad carts throughout the school for rental to students. So again, it is optional. You don't need to go out and buy a laptop or a tablet to begin school next year. And then that bottom bullet there, book list will let families know which books can be purchased as ebooks and which ones can be purchased as traditional text. So there are some departments, the English department, the social studies department, that will allow you to buy an ebook and simply download it onto whatever device that you have. There are others, like the math department and the science department, that would prefer you purchase and may even require you purchase a traditional hardback text. And you'll get more information from your teachers about that. So that's the technology policy. Again, you have I think it's 2.5 pages, if I'm not mistaken. Fact number 5. I'll do this one. I'll give you the next one, Mr. Goulden. I know I'm moving on, but I love talking about this stuff, so it's hard for me to pass the torch to you.
Right.
What world language can I take, and what is the requirement? So DeMatha offers French, Latin, Mandarin, and Spanish. All of those are offered to freshmen. 3 consecutive credits in the same world language are required for graduation. What does that mean? It means you cannot say, well, I want to do Spanish 1 in 9th grade, and you know what, I'm going to do French 1 in 10th grade, and then junior year, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to do Mandarin 1, and I've got my 3 credits. Well, you have 3 credits, but you don't have 3 consecutive credits. What we want is students to graduate with DeMatha, I wouldn't say mastery, but some competency in a world language, and that's why we require 3 consecutive credits. There are students that come in and test into Spanish 2 or Spanish 3 even, or French 3. Those young men also need 3 credits, and we will make sure we offer levels up to their highest need. Later this spring, Mr. Goulden is going to send you all an email, and in that it'll be a Google form, and you will select your language at that point. You'll say, hey, we want to sign up for Spanish, we want to sign up for Mandarin, we want to sign up for Latin. And as he's creating that freshman schedule, he'll be able to put that in. There aren't electives that you can elect in all courses, for example, English, science, that type of thing. But for world language, you do get to pick what world language. The others, for the most part, we determine what the course is going to be. And your scores and background information will help us determine if it's going to be an honors or maybe even an advanced placement level course. Fact number 6. What do you think, Mr. Goulden? You want me to do this one, or you want to take this one?
Sure, you can do it. No problem.
All right. So what are the DeMatha placement exams and what purposes do they serve? So traditionally, we've had 2 Saturday morning placement dates, and you can see I striked it through right there. The first one was Saturday, May 9th. The next one was Saturday, June 6th. They were held in the Convocation Center. Start time was 9 a.m. And the way it worked was you all could come. Your son would go upstairs to the 3rd floor. He would take either a math exam and or a world language exam. And you all then would hear from me, Father James, Dr. McMahon, and Mr. Goulden. Mr. Goulden actually would talk to the families while they were waiting for their sons about the DeMatha Way, as Father James would go over the calendar for the first 2 months of the school year, and Dr. McMahon would talk some philosophical things, and I would just be me up there. We would have donuts and coffee and juice and pastries, and it was a really kind of cool way to, again, connect with you while your sons were upstairs for 90 minutes or so taking a placement exam. We obviously can't do that this year. We will have to figure out another way for your sons to take their placement exams. I know some other schools have gone online. I think we're going to wait and just be cautious to see when Governor Hogan will allow us back to school. And if there's a window in between that time, we'll try to get your sons here for a exam in person, but we're just going to have to wait a little bit. That's sort of to be determined or up in the air. All students are required to take a math placement exam, all of them. I say this countless times. I've said this countless times. A lot of young men come in with Algebra 1 on their 8th grade transcript or report card. But as I mentioned, there are 100+ different feeder schools that send us students. And that's 100+ different 8th grade Algebra 1 classes. Could be different textbooks, different teachers. As far, they could have gone, covered not as many chapters in one and covered more chapters in another course. So we really need to see what that young man's foundation in Algebra 1 is to help us place him in either Honors Algebra 2, Honors Algebra 1, regular college prep Algebra 1, or even potentially Algebra 1, Part 1. So we have to have our students take that math placement exam. It's a DeMatha created exam. Our math department reviews it, and they are the ones that make the suggestion to Mr. Goulden what math course the young man or your son is qualified for. Students who have taken a world language for 5 days a week in 8th grade are strongly encouraged to take the world language placement exam. So not everybody needs to take a world language placement exam. If you don't feel that your son has had enough instruction in a world language, maybe he has taken Spanish, but he's only had a very basic introduction to it, he's likely still going to end up being placed in level 1. For the young men that maybe they're at a French immersion school or another type of dual immersion school, or have really studied the language or maybe even speak it in the home, those are the ones we want to take the world language placement exam. Not everybody needs to, unless you feel you may be bumped up to a second level or an honors level. Again, parents will receive an email with link to registration instructions via a Google form later this month. That link to the placement registration may not come this month because we're, again, still waiting to hear what Governor Hogan's going to say. If we have an idea that schools will reopen sometime in September, you may get that form later this month. We will have to just wait and see. All right, Mr. Goulden, fact number 7 for you. I'm going to take a sip of coffee now.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Paolucci. As Dean of Students, I've worked very closely with our representatives at Potomac Clothing Company for the past year. I can tell you they're absolutely awesome. Traditionally in the past, fittings and purchases have been offered on campus during Saturday placement testing and 2 other Saturdays during the summer. As with, most of the things we're talking about today, we're going to do everything, and Potomac Clothing has promised me that they are going to do everything in their power to make sure that incoming freshmen have an opportunity and have access to purchase uniforms and to get fitted for uniforms. As I mentioned, our school uniform vendor is Potomac Clothing, and that website is listed. It's just very simple, www.DeMathaUniforms.com. We do have one scheduled, as was mentioned, for Saturday, August 11th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the Antler Room, which is our cafeteria, during the DPO book and uniform sale and swap. So again, Potomac Clothing has promised me, they have been great. They're going to do everything in their power to ensure, to set up dates, to make sure that everything in their power that the uniforms are accessible. So,
right, and what Mr. Goulden is kind of speaking of is, a lot of families do take advantage of those early fittings, and what Potomac Clothing has told both Mr. Goulden and I is if we can't get our first fitting until a week before school, we'll be at the school 5 days in a row to get your sons the uniforms that they need. I do suggest, as Mr. Goulden mentioned, click on that link. I guess you really can't click on it. You can type it in there, but it is available via our website. There's all types of pictures of our students in uniforms, what they wear in the fall, winter, this or that. It's a great resource. All right. You want to take this one too?
Yeah, so going on to the next slide, to fact 8. So how can I stay in contact with news from and about the school? So as Mr. Paolucci already mentioned, right now you are on what's called the admissions portal. In early August, the tech department is going to send you an email notifying you that your parent portal is active, as well as provide instructions to access that parent portal. So essentially what's going to happen is, in early August, you'll switch over from the admissions portal to the parent portal. Once that's active, so you'll get, for example, information, bulletins, you'll get weather updates, a lot of different things will regularly be sent to you from your email inbox. The reason this is so important is because our main office assistants, essentially whenever there's any type of announcement, it automatically gets sent out. So it's very important that once you get those instructions, that you set up your parent portal. The second bullet point, we are very active as a school on social media. So just like I'm telling you that you're going to get instructions to the parent portal, I would also encourage you to get on our Facebook, become friends on our Facebook page, and also to follow our Twitter and our Instagram. Just like the parent portal, these are platforms that you'll get a lot of great information. And it's also just in general, just a really great way to keep up with the school and the goings on of the school. I can tell you when I was a student at DeMatha, there was no real social media. DeMatha was not on social media. And that's one of the things that in this day and age, it's something we're really trying to do to make sure the people are in the know and have information.
Right. Thanks so much, Mr. Goulden. So obviously follow us, friend us, what have you on those platforms. Going back to the parent portal for a second, that portal is going to be the same portal that you use to go in, and you'll get instructions from us and the tech office to go in, or from the admissions office and the tech office. That's where you'll go in and view your son's schedule. That's basically going to be your tool to communicate with teachers. You're going to be able to see assignments posted. It's all through Veracross, which is our school management system. Again, your permissions right now are still as almost an applicant, even if many of you are fully enrolled, but that just doesn't change over until a little bit later. When do tryouts start for fall sports? I'll take this one, Mr. Goulden. I'm already here. I guess I'm the one clicking through everything anyway. As you can see, if you look at the bottom of the page, cross country, freshman football, and freshman soccer, they all are slated to begin August 15th. You will hear more from Mr. Goulden this summer. Contacts, what you need, that type of stuff with respect to the fall sports. Crew, or rowing, for those of you that don't know exactly what crew is, they start a little bit later. They're going to start on September 9th. They like to get the students in class, get their feet underneath them a little bit. There are a lot of freshmen that have never rowed before in their life that attend a meeting, learn about this once they're here, and then go out for the crew team or the crew program on September 9th. So just some dates for you there. Again, you'll get a lot more of this information. But if you're doing family vacations over the summer, again, who knows with this COVID-19 time, we'd like to get you these dates early enough so you're not at the beach on August 16th and then your son misses the first day of a practice. I'll take this one too, Mr. Goulden. I'll give you the next one. So what is the health form and immunization certificate submission process? These forms, it's going to be 6 or 7 pages, will be emailed to you in the near future once Mr. Goulden gets together with our athletic training staff. But all health forms must be uploaded to, we call it ATS, Athletic Training Systems. We're going to provide you with login information. It's a database that the school uses, that our athletic training staff uses to oversee, review, evaluate all of our young men's health forms that they have. There's a number of forms, physical forms, medical history, a few other forms that go along with that, an immunization record. Again, you'll get detailed instructions on this. What is important here is that when your son gets his physical, that must be completed and dated by his doctor, by his physician, by wherever he gets it done after June 1st. Anything before June 1st, on May 29th, that is not seen as current. And we do run into some issues with insurance where you're allowed to get one during a certain window. Our athletic training staff can provide some alternative locations for you to go get low cost, and they basically are considered athletic physicals or sports physicals, but they will serve what we need. Again, more information to come on this. Please do not delay in making your appointments, as forms and that certificate, that's the immunization certificate, must be submitted by July 15th. Again, I'm not going to harp on it, but there's going to be a lot more detailed information to come on this to you in the near future. All right. I added this one since we rehearsed this last night, Mr. Goulden. I can let you take it. You can read through. We'll put you on the spot here as the new admissions director and just read through and talk, and then I can fill in a little bit as well. As you and I have been in conversation with Dr. McMahon about this.
So this is, there's been a lot, as Mr. Paolucci mentioned, there's been a lot of internal discussions about what if summer session, cannot take place. I'm the summer school principal, so I can talk about this a little bit. We're exploring a lot of different options right now, but what I can tell you is the enrollment would absolutely be open without the completion of the summer session. The requirement would be waived. Now, it's not like we would say, oh, no summer session, I guess you're out of luck. So we would certainly be flexible with that. Another thing is, if possible, and this would really benefit the student. We're really doing this for the student. We really think this would help the student. We would offer a 1 or 2 week long academic boot camp at the beginning of the year, or at least close to the beginning of the year. And what this would do is, just like our summer session does, is this would give the students an opportunity to kind of brush up on their skills. And for me, the most important thing is the relationships built with those teachers. They get a lot of help during summer session, and it's my hope that during this boot camp, it will be something similar. So they'll have that additional help. The counseling center is also going to be working very closely with me to come up with maybe best practices about how we can handle that. The academic support center, Mrs. Phelan and Mrs. Strickland, they're about as close as you can come to being saints. They are absolutely awesome. My learning resource teacher was Mrs. Guerin. At that point, it was only one person. And they're awesome. They do tremendous things for the students, and they're here early, they leave late. And so the academic support center, if I can tell you anything, through this crisis, they are going to be there for the students. So whatever they have to do, and Mr. Paolucci will, can agree to this, they're going to do it. And so the last thing, probably most importantly, refunds will absolutely be issued for those courses already registered. So again, we're gonna be flexible. We're gonna work closely with the business office if it does come to that. But please do not hesitate to register for classes, and don't have that hold you back, because I promise you, I will do everything to make sure that you get the refund in a timely fashion.
Great. Thanks so much, Mr. Goulden. And I'm going to put my counseling hat on for a second. And I always like to sort of summarize things, because I may not have made it as clear. There are certain students who were accepted to DeMatha with the condition that they completed a prep session. Maybe it was to improve some math skills. Maybe it was to improve some English skills, just to make sure that they were ready to go with our college prep level work as 9th graders. This isn't for everybody. It's for a certain amount of young men who had that condition with their acceptance. What we're basically saying here is, if prep summer session cannot happen, you are still going to be able to enroll for the upcoming school year. What we're hopefully going to be able to do is, if we can start on time, offer a much shorter boot camp than the 4-week session. And even if we can't do that, we're going to make sure that our counseling center, our academic support center, are there to make sure those young men who we had hoped got a little bit extra work during the summer have success academically. Many of you have already paid for 1, 2 courses. If this gets canceled, if we cannot have it, you will get a refund. I know I've gotten some emails about that I don't think I've responded to everybody yet, but I wanted to make that clear here. This is an easy one. Mrs. Bright already talked about this. Do 9th grade students have a Christian service requirement? They sure do. There's Mrs. Bright's information. If I'm not mistaken, that is included in the email that was sent tonight, which has this link that you're watching on. So more information, and you got to see Mrs. Bright earlier.
And Mr. Paolucci, could I also add one more thing to the number 12 as far as service goes? In DeMatha Way, Mrs. Bright will actually come and visit, and she will actually come to the class, and everything is online for the service, submitting service hours. So she'll actually come into class pretty early on, I think in maybe September, and she will teach the students exactly how to submit the service hours. And I hope I'm not stealing too much of her thunder here, but she may or may not. Usually once they prove that they know how to submit an hour, a sample hour, usually she grants them the hour. But it's one of the things that we make sure that we bring her into DeMatha Way so that students are familiar with that process.
Very good. Thanks for adding that, Mr. Goulden. Let you take these.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions about the music program or auditions, I wish I could say that I could answer those questions, but I can't. Mr. Jim Roper is going to be the one who is going to be handling auditions, questions about the music program, etc. So I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to speak for him, but if you have any questions about the choral music program, or excuse me, about the instrumental music program, please contact Mr. Jim Roper. If you have questions about the choral music program, Mr. Jim Turk would be the one that you would contact for that. So again, setting up auditions or questions about the music programs, they would not go to me, they would go to those two gentlemen.
Very good. Take this one too, Mr. Goulden. There's another softball for you.
Sure. So Mr. Eck is awesome. He runs our one thing that Mr. Paolucci did. He's added a lot of bus routes, and it's been awesome. A lot of kids have access to DeMatha, which is just great. If you have a question about a bus route, about just general questions about transportation, don't hesitate to reach out to Mr. Eck. Mr. Eck is awesome. Mr. Eck is a 2011 graduate. So he handles not only our bus transportation, but also our carpools. When I was a student at DeMatha, I rode in a carpool for 3 years. I wasn't fortunate enough to drive my junior year. You can almost always find a family that's coming from your, if not your city, at least your area. So we have an awesome list. I'd be Mr. Paolucci, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have an awesome list that he keeps track of, and of carpools and families that live in your area. So
yeah, what Mr. Eck does is you'll email him, say, hey, I live in the Waldorf area and I am interested in a carpool. Can you help me? And he will say, certainly. Give me your zip code and give me a handful of surrounding zip codes that you'd be willing to travel to, drop your son off in the morning or pick him up in the afternoon. And then he'll go in and search our entire student population, all of our incoming 9th graders, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, and he'll gather the parents' email addresses, and then he'll send everybody an email. He'll blind copy everyone except for the person asking for the help. So let's just say I lived in Waldorf, and what Mr. Eck would do is say, good afternoon, this is Mr. Eck, Transportation Director. Tommy Paolucci is a new student at DeMatha, class of 2024. He lives in Waldorf, and his parents are looking for some assistance to get in a carpool. If you are available, willing, XYZ, please respond to me and Mr. and Mrs. Paolucci through this email. So what he does is already makes that geographic connection for you, but he doesn't really put pressure on families if they're not interested in a carpool. Maybe they already do bus transportation or this or that. So he blind copies them so they're not out there. But I can tell you, before he took over as transportation director, I did all those emails over the summer, and I can't remember maybe one or two where a family wrote back and said, hey, Mr. Paolucci, we didn't have any luck. Usually it's that same day. Thank you, Mr. Paolucci. We're all set, because everybody's looking to help each other get to school. They don't want to make that drive 5 days a week. They want to split that up. So a little bit there about carpooling to give you more details. Let's go to 15. I think we've got 2 more. Mr. Goulden, you take this one.
all right. So any questions about money? Do not go to me. They go to Ann Metz. No, all jokes aside, if you have any questions about tuition, fees, aid, the fax payment plan, those questions would be directed to Mrs. Ann Metz. General questions about like setting up a fax payment plan, if you email me about that, I may answer it if it's general enough. But in most cases, I'm going to direct you to Mrs. Ann Metz, and she is just great. She's awesome. She's our finance director, and you can see her phone number and email listed below. But any questions about money, please do not direct to me. Thank you.
Very well done.
Thanks.
I'll take this final one here. Pretty sure it's the final one. Is there a summer reading requirement? Yes. Students will have to read 2 short novels this summer, and details will be sent via email in the near future about that. And again, I got to think, I'll try to make sure that it's attached to this email. It's kind of funny. It's in the afternoon on Friday right now as I'm talking about an email that was just received by you. So I got to make sure what I add into that email. But anyway, yes, there is a summer reading requirement. We'll get you the details. Either you've already got them as an attachment to this email, or Mr. Goulden will share in the coming months. Obviously, the focus right now for your son is completing 8th grade successfully. So we won't get too concerned about his summer reading requirement. With that said, and hope I don't get emotional here, I just would like to welcome the class of 2024. Obviously, I finish a lot of my emails with Go Stags and an exclamation point. Mr. Goulden, you're welcome to steal that from me if you'd like. You don't have to. But I know you read my email I sent a few weeks ago. I love this school. You all are making a great decision by sending your sons here. It's been an honor to work with many of you from August through now, and even some of you years before that, we've known each other. I just want to thank you. I got countless responses of appreciation when I did send that email, and I've got them all in a folder, and I'm going to try to get back to them in due time. I know I didn't write everybody back yet, but DeMatha is an excellent place. It's a great school, and I'm lucky enough that the school and I are going to still be working together for at least the upcoming year. Mr. Goulden and I'm going to be a person that's sort of the imaginary person sitting on his shoulder. We plan to have a few phone conversations every week, maybe even in-person meetings on Saturdays, just if he has questions as he's transitioning to ask me. He's got a great experienced staff. Mrs. Christine Thomas is the assistant director of admissions. She's got more experience than me in admissions. She's somebody who many of you communicated with, who you can lean on. Mr. Rob Landini, who helped you with your stag for a day visit. He's still going to be in the office. Mr. Eck, our transportation director, you probably met him through some outreach fairs, maybe a school tour. He's still going to be in the office. And then the person you see right underneath me, Mr. Pat Goulden, again, class of '09, has worked at the school in a few different fashions. He's taught. He was promoted to Dean of Students this past year, and now is the right person to take over as the Director of Admissions. And he's a good friend of mine. We have a great working relationship, and I think he's just going to do a great job as my replacement. I'm not going to be far, but Pat is going to be the man. So I thank you. I wish you the best of luck this upcoming year. Obviously, do your best to stay safe, stay healthy during this COVID-19 time that we're in. Mr. Goulden, I think I'll let you sign off as well.
To the class of 2024, I could not be more excited to get started in August. I also hope that as you listen to Mr. Paolucci's final words, that his words illustrate to you what DeMatha really is, and that's a family and a brotherhood. And as admissions director, as Mr. Paolucci and now me, it's something that we talk about a lot. But I hope that just by seeing how much this means to Mr. Paolucci and how hard he's worked and how much he loves the school, I hope that you will take from that kind of what this is all about, and that is a brotherhood, one strong brotherhood. And I could not be more excited. I'm going to miss Tommy, but as he said, he's not going to be far away. So without further ado, thank you so much. I hope you stay safe, and God bless.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Mr. Goulden and Mrs. Thomas will be in touch. Go Stags.